Welcome guys once again to the best math channel in the world, Sir Young Bizzy Made It Easy channel. The only channel exam fierce when it comes to mathematics. Today is another series we are going to start. Yes, and if today is your first time seeing us, don't forget to subscribe and recommend, like and comment Sir Young Bizzy Made It Easy on all social media platforms, Instagram, Thread, TikTok and Facebook as well. And the purpose of this channel, as I keep saying, that it is to put out the fear or put away the fear of mathematics in students. Yes, math is the easiest subject or one of the easiest subjects in the world, and to know it is about constant practice. So you have to practice more and you will become very good. All those who are good in mathematics started by practicing it. So you can equally be good. Don't say, yeah, I don't know math, I don't like math. So when you practice constantly, you are going to be better in mathematics. And this is purposely created for students in the JHS up to the tertiary level. So any problem you are encountering in mathematics, this channel is for you. So you recommend, then you subscribe for more. Now we are done with our long series in number basis and finding zero and algebraic zero and undefined algebraic fraction 2 has been treated. That's the current video. You can just go and watch out, then give us the feedback. Now we are quickly going to move on to today's lesson. Today's lesson, we are going to talk about finding the midpoint, the midpoint, the midpoint, the magnitude. And what you have to understand is that when I ask you to find magnitude, it's the same as find the length, find the distance, or find the modulus of a given line and gradient. So this lesson is going to be 3 in 1. We are going to treat midpoint, magnitude, which is the same as length or distance and modulus of a line. Then we are going to treat gradient. It's another examinable area. So all the examples I solve or all the questions I solve are selected past questions from those areas. So you take note of that. And when you solve more, any question you see, you are going to do it. Now we are quickly going to start with what? Midpoint. We are going to start with midpoint. When we say midpoint, what is midpoint? So midpoint of a line or the exact middle point of the line. So midpoint is the exact middle point of a given line. So if I have this line A and B, and they've given us the line as what? 10 centimeters. How do I find the midpoint? The midpoint should be exactly the middle, which is going to give me 5 centimeters. And I'm not saying this is how we do it. Yes. So this topic is under coordinate. Yes, this is under coordinate geometry. Yeah, this is under coordinate geometry. So when you draw a graph and you draw a given line, let's say line AB on the graph, and you are asked to find the midpoint. So we have our y-axis and the x-axis, and you have drawn a given line, and you have to find the midpoint. You use the 2 points, the x and the y coordinates down here and the x and the y coordinate up. And when you use the formula to find, you are going to get exactly the middle. The coordinate you are going to get should be exactly the middle of this point. So when you talk about midpoint, basically that is how the idea is. So that's the meaning of midpoint. So anytime you draw a linear graph, I mean a graph involving the straight line, and they ask you to find the midpoint of a given area or a given coordinate, we are just talking about the getting exactly the middle of that given line. And there's a formula for finding the midpoint. So this is how the formula goes. This is how the formula goes. So to find the midpoint, so midpoint. So for which we normally use m. So to find the midpoint, it is our first x coordinate by second x coordinate divided by 2. Then we have first y coordinate added to the second y coordinate, all divided by 2. So the answers we are going to get, in the linear graph, if a point is plotted here, we have our x and y coordinate, and another point is plotted here, we have the y and the x coordinate as well. So when you want to find the midpoint, this line divided by 2, yes, as I illustrated this one using the a and the b, and I said 10, yes, 10. So 10 divided by 2, you get 5, which will give you the middle of this point. But in the coordinate or in the linear graph, we use this formula. So one thing about mathematics is, yes, know the formulas and when to use them. So this is the formula for finding the midpoint of a given line. And when you write the formula, given the point, you should be able to locate your x and the y1. Yes, your x and the y1 for any pair of coordinates. If I have 8, 6, for any pair of coordinates, the first one is x, the second one is y. This one you need to understand. The first one is x, the second one is y. So if you have been given A, 8, 6, this is the first x, this is the first y. And if you have B, this is a negative 2, 8. This is the second x, then this is the second y. So you just put them inside, then you solve, then you get your midpoint of the line. So being able to identify your what? Each of the coordinates is also very, very important. So keep the formulas by practicing more the formula. So it's about knowing that now this question, there's a formula I used to solve a particular question. So we are quickly going to take our first question on this. So as the question is posted on the screen, they find the midpoint of a straight line joining the point A. A is 2, 1, and B is 6, 5. Yes, A 2, 1 and B 6, 5. Now let's look at this. Now midpoint, or I can use a capital M. So my x1 plus my x2 coordinate all on 2, then I'll have my y1 coordinate plus my y2 coordinate all on 2. Now according to the question, what is our x1? x1 is 2, then y1 is what? 1. Then I have x2, which is 6. Then, sorry, yes, x2, which is 6. Then I have y2, which is 5. Now, then looking at this, we can put it back into the formula. Yes, we can put it back into the formula. So we can say m is equal to, now what is our x1? 2 plus x1 is 2, and x2 is 6, all on 2. Then our y1 is 1 plus our y2, which is 5, all on 2 as well. So what do we have here? Now this 2 plus 6 is 8, all on 2. Then we have 1 plus 5, 6, all on 2. Now we have our 8 on 2, then 6 on 2. 2 can divide this of 1, divide here 4. Then 2 can divide here 1, divide here 3. So now what do we have here? Let me continue here. So this has given me 4. Then this has given me 3. Yes, so I've gotten the 2 points. So Therefore, the midpoint is 4, 3. So given these two coordinates, the midpoint of the line is going to give us 4, 3. And when you try to draw the number plane and draw the linear graph and plot these 2 points, this point is going to be exactly the middle of that line. Yeah, so it's basically about knowing how to use the formula to calculate for the midpoint we have asked you to calculate. Yes, so this is how we solve it. It's very simple. Be able to identify your x1, x2, y1, and y2. And I've explained for any pair of coordinates, the first one is x, the second one is y. So we are quickly taking the next question. The question says, find the coordinate of the midpoint of the straight line joining D. Point D is -6, point D -6, -1, then point E. Point E is 3, -4. So they say we should find the midpoint. First of all, we quote our formula. The midpoint to give us x1 plus x2 all on 2, comma y1, y2 all on 2 as well. Now we need to identify our coordinates, each of them. So what is our x1? So x1 here is -6. Then y1 is -1. Now x2 is 3. Then y2 is -4. So you do this somewhere in order to guide you. So now what is our x1? -6. x1 is -6 plus x2, which is 3, all on 2. Then we have our y2. y2 is -1 plus, sorry, our y1 is -1, and our y2 is -4. Since two signs are meeting, the second one should be in a bracket. Now let's, because of this, I'll repeat this one here. -6. Told you in my teaching, I don't jump steps. You need to understand everything step by step. So -1, positive negative will be -4. All on 2. Now I can simplify this. -3 plus -6 plus 3. And I told you anytime you see negative, without the calculator, assume you are owing somebody 6, then you want to pay 3. So we are going to owe -3 all on 2. And this one, -1 minus 4. -1 minus 4. You were owing 1 and you want to borrow again. So you're owing 1, you want to borrow 4. So you are going to owe -5 all on 2. Now can we divide 2 by 3? No. Can we divide 2 by 5? No. So we leave it as such. If you want to leave it in this fraction, this one is going to give a -1.5. This one too is going to give a -2.5. But I will leave my point like this. So I'll conclude by saying, therefore, the midpoint of the line DE is -3 on 2, then -5 on 2. So this is how we find the midpoint of this given line. Normally, when it involves negative, you have to be very careful. And this is what you need to be careful when the positive is meeting the negative. If you are careful about this, everything is not about the calculator. Know how to present your answer. Sometimes when you point the calculator, it just gives you the answer straight. But if you know how the calculator arrive at a certain answer, since mathematics is always maths a mark in steps. So we don't need to jump steps to lose marks. So we are quickly taking the next question. So the next question is the midpoint of a line joining y and z. So joining y and z is m1 2a minus 1. So the y coordinate was what? Was given us 2a, 3, and the z or z was given us -4, -4b. So the midpoint of a line joining y 2a 3 and z -4b is, so they've given us m 1 2a minus 1. This is a WASI question. Yes, this is a WASI question. In the last 2 years or so, yes. This is a WASI question. Yes, last 2 years. So we can go and check that. So they said the midpoint joining the line y and the line z is this. So this one, they have given us the midpoint. And what you have to understand is that when we are finding the midpoint of a line, let's say m 2 1 and n 4 6, and we're quoting the formulas. So x1, x2 over 2, then comma y1 plus y2 all over 6. So assuming, all over 2. So what you have to understand is that we were getting 2 points. Let's say we got 2 8 as a midpoint. So the 2 8 we've gotten means that the x1 is for this side, which is the first one, and the second one is for this side. This is the trick you need to understand. When we find the midpoint of any given line, this formula gives us the first answer, and the y part gives us the second answer. So in this one that they have given us the point and the midpoint, and they are asking us to find the values of a and b, what you have to understand is that you calculate or you find the point, you put the formula for this, and you equate this one to the first answer. Then you equate this one to the second answer. As simple as that, then you get your values of E. What's the formula for midpoint? Midpoint, which is M, give us x1 plus x2 all over 2. Then we have y1 plus y2 all over 2. Now let's find our x coordinate. x1 is what? 2a. y1 is 3. x2 is -4. y2 has been given as b. Now we have our midpoints, which is 1, 2a minus b. So if you want to find the value of a, so let's put in the values there. So the midpoint, which was given us, so let's put it here. 1, 2a minus 1. Here's the midpoint. It is replacing this. Now, the x1 is 2a plus x2 -4. Since two signs are meeting, the second one. So now the y2 is b plus y1. y1 is 3 all over 2. Now bracket close. And I've explained earlier that this formula, this part is for the first answer, the second part is for the second answer. So if you want to know the values of a and b, you should know what to do. Yes. So now let's find the value of a. Now the value of a. The value of a, this part. So the value of a will give us 2a plus -4 all on 2 is equal to 1. Because the x part is for the first answer. So the top one. Now how do we solve this? We can cross multiply or find the LCM. So here cross multiplication will be the easiest one. So this is over 1. So when you multiply this by, you get the same thing. You multiply this by this, you get the same thing. So now I'll write this 2a. Let me even repeat it. Negative 4 is equal to now 2 times 1. Yes, 2 times 1. Now I have 2a positive negative with negative 4 is equal to what? 2. We are using equation. So 2a will be equal to what? 2 plus 4, the 4 crossing. So now let me even continue here. Now I have 2a is equal to what? 6. 2a is equal to 6. So what do I do here to find our a? I have to divide by the coefficient of the a. So it will divide 3. Now I've gotten a as what? As 3. Yes, I've gotten a as 3. Now I can use the same approach to find the value of b. So now the value of b. The value of b. So b plus 3 all on 2 should also be equal to this 2a minus 1. Yes, 2a minus 1. Now what do you see here? I'm seeing 2 letters. Meanwhile, I find for the value of a already. Don't be confused here. You have calculated for the value of a. So you have to put it in so that you have only one variable. So with this, we know a is equal to 3. So we are going to have b plus 3 is equal to 2 multiplying 3 minus 1 all on 2. Yes. So what do I have here? I have b plus 3 all on 2 is equal to, this one will give me 6 minus 1. 6 minus 1. 6 minus 1. Okay. 6 minus 1. Let me continue this one to here. So 6 minus 1. So I have b plus 3 all on 2 is equal to what? 5. Now I'll cross multiply here over 1. So I'll get the same thing. B plus 3 is equal to 2 times 5. Now b plus 3 is equal to 10. So b will be equal to 10 minus 3. Sorry. B minus 3. B minus 3. So now b is equal to what? 7. So now we are fine for the values of a and b. Yes. So the values, so I can say the values are a is equal to 3 and b is equal to 7. Yeah, a is equal to 3 and b is equal to 7. This is a one question. Sometimes they'll just play with your mind small, then you are confused. But you have to know what you are doing. Yeah, so when they give you the midpoint, you should understand that the first part is for the first answer, the second part is for the second answer. So you just pick them one after the other as I did, then you equate them, then use the equation principle to solve. And you will not get it anywhere being simplified than Sir Young Bizzy made it easy channel. Don't forget to subscribe and watch out for more. So this brings us to the end of the lesson on finding the midpoint of a given line. So watch closely. We are continuing to find, we are going to find the magnitude, the distance, or the modulus of the line as well. So keep watching. In this part, we are going to talk about the magnitude. And I've told you that the magnitude of a line is the same as the length. Is the same as the distance of a line. It is also the same as the modulus of a line. We are finding the midpoint. That's the middle point. Now we are going to find the magnitude, the length, or the distance or modulus of a line. They are used interchangeably. So you have to know anytime they ask you to find the magnitude of a line, the length of a line, the modulus of a line is the same thing they are talking about. Now, how do we find the length of a line? It has its own formula. but you have to understand how the formula was deduced. So let's say we have this point on our number plane. We have this point on our number plane. Let's say we have A and we have our B. And anytime we plot any point, we plot the x-axis against the corresponding y-axis. And since this where the numbers begin from, so we label it as x1. Let me write it here, x1, y1. Then this one is x2, then y2. Now, how do we find the length of this line? So to find the length of this line, we can see that now in this point, on this line, we have our y1, y2, since this is the y-axis. And then we have our x1, x2. So when we trace this to this, now what do you see? We've gotten a right angle triangle. So how do we find the length of this line? So to find the length of this line, we have to apply the Pythagoras theory to by Pythagoras theory principle. Yes. So and we know this side. This side, we can trace the x-axis and the y-axis number here, or the x-axis and the, so here we say x1, x2, and when you come here, we have the y1 and the y2. Now follow closely. Excuse me. So now, how do we apply the Pythagoras theorem? And you know, Pythagoras is saying that this side square, this side square should give us this side square. Yeah, this is the longer side, which is the hypotenuse. Yeah, the longer side, which is the hypotenuse. So now to find this, we are going to get our AB. Line AB square should be equal to our x2 minus x1 squared plus our y2 minus our y1 squared. Yes. So when we are applying the Pythagoras theorem, this is what we are expecting to get. Yes, expecting to get. But since here is a square, they say we define the length of AB. So to find the length of AB, so our AB, we have to eliminate the square here. And in my previous videos, I've explained how we eliminate square. Yes, how we eliminate square. We eliminate square by using what? Square root. So you square root both sides. So this is going to take this. Yes, this is going to take this. So our line AB will give us the x2, x1 squared plus the y2 minus y1 squared. Yes. Now, what is this? So this is the formula we use to calculate for the length or distance or the modulus of a given line. So this is how we, so this is the formula. So midpoint formula is different from the distance formula. Yes, midpoint formula is different from distance formula. Why did we use x2 minus x1? You know, in Pythagoras or in a right angle, we need only one coordinate. So we subtract the first x coordinate, second one from the first one to get a single digit. Then we do the same here. So the number we get, then we apply the Pythagoras theorem. So this is how we got the formula for finding for the length, the distance, or the modulus of a given line. So when they give you any question, the formula is what? The square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus the bracket open y2 minus y1 squared, and the answer is written in units. This is what you need to understand. So this is how the formula came about. So you have to know how to use the formula too. Yes, you have to know how to know the formula. So we are quickly going to take our first question on the length or the distance of a line. It's on the screen. Find the length of the line joining. So C, the coordinate for C, as posted, you have 1, 3, and D was given as 4, 7. So we can use this to represent the length. Yes, the length. When you see this symbol, sometimes they don't even write the length in words. You see this, so the length. So what's the formula? So the formula is going to give us x2 x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Now let's identify our x1. x1 is 1, y1 is 3, x2 is 4, y2 is what? Is 7. So let's put them back into the formula. Let's put them back into the formula. So this is going to give us the square root of a bracket open x2 is 4 minus x1, which is 1 squared, plus y2 7 minus y1, which is 3 squared as well. So follow close. Now 4 minus 1 will give you 3 all squared. Now 7 minus 3 will give me 4 all squared. So now 3 squared will give 3 times 3, which will give me 9, plus 4 squared, which is 16. So this one will give me the square root of 25, for which 25 is a perfect square. So the square root of 25 is 5 units. So this is how we find the length of a given line. So the length of the line C13 and D47 is 5 units. As simple as that. So this is how we find the length of a given line. So quickly, let's take the next question. It says find the distance of point 8, negative 6 from the origin. From the origin. Interesting. From the origin. Now, what origin are we talking about? When you draw any graph, being it in this form or in this form, we normally label here O, origin, where all the numbers start counting from. So this is the origin. So this origin, what is the coordinate there? So in this origin, what we need to understand is that our x is 0 and our y2 is 0. In calculating for the length or the distance of a given line, we need 2 points. But they are saying that the distance is from the origin, yes, to the other end. So don't be confused. Understand the simple tricks in this, and you are good to go. So this side to the origin. So the origin is OO. So from here to here. So you can see that the origin is now OO. So if the origin is now OO, and now we have the other point, which is 8, negative 6. Now, can we identify our x1 and y1? So our x1, 0, y1 is 0. Now, our x2 is 8, then x2 is 8, then our y2 is negative 6. So students to see this, and they will get stuck. Why? Because they normally give 2 points. So you need to understand the mathematics English they have used there. So therefore, let me give them letters. M, Let me give here m. Let me give here n. Yes, n, and 8, negative 6. So I'm going to find the length of m, n. And what's the formula? The formula, bracket open, x2, x1 squared. Then I have y2, y1 squared. So what is my x2? 8. x1, 0 squared, plus my y2, negative 6. y1 is 0. That one too squared according to the formula. So 8 minus 0 give me 8 squared. Give me 8 squared. Then negative 6 minus 0 give me negative 6 to squared. Now 8 times 8, that's the 8 squared. So 8 times 8 will give me 64. 64 plus negative 6 squared will give me 36. Will give me 36. Now, you need to understand this. When it is in the bracket, yes, when the negative is in the bracket square, negative 6 times negative 6. That's the meaning of it. So that when the point that I calculate, that's what negative is positive. Now I have 64 plus 36, which will give me 100. Yes, 100. And 100 is a perfect square. So 100, square root of 100 will give me 10 units. So the length or the distance of a line 8, negative 6 from the origin will give me an answer of 10 units. So the new thing that came in is the origin, and that's what you need to understand and understand it well. So this is how we solve it. It's very easy and simple. Keep watching, and let's take the last question on the distance and the length of a line. On the length, it finds the length of straight line joining the point U, negative 1, negative 3, and V. So the V is negative 3, negative 6. I chose this question. When it comes to negative, they are normally tricky. So you have to take note of that. When it involves negative, but it's going to be simplified, so don't worry. So the length of UV. So let's put the formula. The formula, our x2 minus x1 squared, then y2 minus y1 all squared. Now in this, let's write our x1. The x1 coordinate is negative 3. Now let me write the x2, which is negative 3. Sorry, the x1 is negative 1, and the x2 is negative 3. Now y1 is negative 3, and the y2 is what? Negative 6. So you write them in order to guide you. So this is, so now what is x2? x2 is negative 3. The formula has minus already, and the x1 too is having a minus, so this will be in a bracket. You have to take note of that. When two signs are meeting, the second one with the number will be in bracket. This is what you need to understand. Plus the y2. The y2 is negative 6. The sign has minus already. Then you are introducing negative as well. That one too will be in a bracket. So you follow closely. Now let's move on. So this will give me negative 3, positive, and negative will be what? Positive. This one will be what? 1. Then bring the square. All square. Yes. That is why when you point the calculator, it gives you straight answer. But you need to understand. So negative 6, negative again will give me positive all squared. This channel is not to just come and solve mathematics and leave. It is here to explain mathematics concepts and principles to students to understand it and understand it the last level. Now, negative 3 plus 1, you're owing 3 and you paid 1. With the calculator, it will give you negative 2, then we have our squared here. Now, you're owing 6 and you paid 3. You are still going to negative 3, then you have our squared here. Now, negative 2 squared will give me 4. Then negative 3 squared will give me 9. So this 4 plus 9 will give me 13. 13 is not a perfect square number. So I can leave my answer in 13 units. Or I can find the square root of the 13 and leave my answer in a number of decimal place. So it will give me 3.6055. So I can leave it in one decimal place, which is 3.6, or two decimal place, which is 61 unit, depending on the question. So maybe the question might ask you to leave in some number of decimal places. So you find the square root of that. Then, or if the question is silent, you can leave it in the square root, since 13 is not a perfect square number. So basically, this is how we find the length, the distance, and the modulus of any given line. Yes. So the next part is going to be how to calculate for the gradient or the slope of a line. So follow closely for the next part of the lesson. In this part, we are going to talk about gradients. We are going to talk about gradient. So gradient, another word for gradient is what? Slope. So what do we use gradient for? Gradient is used to determine how steep or gentle a slope is. How steep or gentle a slope is. So assuming these are two distances from the same distance. So there's the ground and there's the ground. And you have to walk on these two hills. Now what do you see here? So we can see this one is more steep, or you can say it is very long. Okay, it looks more slopey than this one. So this one is steep, this one is what? Gentle. Okay, if you are climbing or you are descending, like, or when roofing sheets, when buildings, so when they are roofed like this compared to when they are roofed in this form. So this is more steep and slopey, and this is what? Gentle. So the gradient is used to calculate for how steep or gentle a slope is. And it's very, very important. We apply them in our daily lives. Yes, so sometimes when they are roofing our houses and your roofing sheet is in this form, it is assumed that you conserve more rain when you conserve more rain than this, because when immediately the rain falls on it, it comes with a what? A certain speed as compared to this one that it will curve before it falls. That's applicable. Now a hill, yes, before you climb or when you are riding a bicycle, you should know, you calculate it in your head, you know that no, I have to apply more force than this. It's because this one looks more slopey and this one looks more what? Gentle. That's an application of slope you need to know. And it has its own formula. So we have on the same number plane, yes, as I demonstrated when I was teaching the length of a line. So we have our x1, then our x2, then we have our y2 here, then our y1. So to calculate for the slope of any given line, it is the y, this side, the difference between the y coordinate all over the difference between the y and the x coordinate. This is how we find the slope. So gradient, for which we use the small m, say the change in y over change in x. This one means change in both mathematics and economics. Or the formula, we can see the change. So this, the y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. Or you can say y1 minus y2, x1 minus x2, depending on where you are picking your point from. Yes, where you are picking your point from, how you are labeling your graph. Yes, so the x2 to y2 and the y1. So the change in y over the change in x gives you the slope. So this is the formula we use to calculate for a gradient or a slope as well. So let's take a question on this and see how this formula is applied. So the first question says, find the gradient of line joining the point A, 1, 1, and B, 7, 2. And I've told you earlier, you have to be able to identify, since we are using the change in x and the change in y. So my x1 is 1, my x2 is 7, my y1 is 1, and my y2 is 2. Now what's the formula? So gradient, small m. So I can use the change in y over change in x, or I prefer the y2 minus y1, then the x2 minus x1, since that one will help me easier. So what is y2? y2 is 2 minus y1. y1 is 1, all on my x2. x2 is 7 minus x1, which is also 1. So 2 minus 1 is 1, then 7 minus 1 is what? Is 6. So therefore, my gradient, which is m, or slope, will give me 1 on 6. So this is how we calculate for the gradient. You should know how to identify the x, y1 using the formula. And I combined the length of a line, the gradient, and the midpoint because they look similar. They have certain things in common. That's why I decided to treat all of them in one lesson. So quickly, we are taking the next question. So the next question says, E has the point 4, 2. So E has a point 4, 2, and F has a point 2, 1. So we have to find the gradient of the line EF. The gradient of line. The question on the board says E has a point 4, 2, and F has a point 2, 1. To calculate the gradient of EF. So to calculate for the gradient of EF, we have to identify our point. X1 is 4. Now X2. X1 is 4. Then X2 is 2. Then Y1. Y1 is 2. Then Y2 is 1. So our X1 is 4. Our X2 is 2. So X1, Y1. So X1 is 4. Then Y1 is 2. X2 is 2. Y1 and Y2 is 2. So the gradient, the formula is Y2 minus Y1 x2 minus x1. Now y2 here is 1 minus y1, which is 2. Now what is x2? x2 is 2, x1 is 4. So 1 minus 2 will give me negative 1, all on 2 minus 4, which also give me negative 2. So negative 1, negative 2, negative cancels negative. So our answer is 1 on 2. So therefore our gradient, which is m for this point, will give us 1 on 2. As simple as that. So this is how we find the gradient of this line as well. So you should be able to identify your coordinates and use a formula to solve. So let's take the next question. So the next question says, find the gradient of the line that passes through the point x. So x, negative 7, negative y. Negative 7, negative 10, and y. The y coordinate is given as negative 5, negative 2. Negative 5, negative 2. So I selected all negative coordinates. Because dealing with the negative is sometimes tricky and confusing, but you have to pay attention. Now let's identify our x1. x1 is negative 7. Let's identify our x2. x2 is negative 5. Our y1 is negative 10. Our y2 is negative 2. So let's quote our formula. Since it is very, very important in every calculation, the formula is math. So you have to always quote it. So y2, our y2 is negative 2. The formula has minus already. And the y1 you are introducing to as negative. Then so our x2 is negative 5. The formula has minus and you are bringing negative 7. So when you are dealing with the negative, you have to be very, very careful. Now, negative 2, negative, negative, positive, then 10. Negative 5, negative, negative, give me positive, and 7. Now, negative 2 plus 10, you were owing 2, and you went to pay it with 10. So it is going to give us positive 8. You were owing 5, you went to pay with 7. So it will be positive what? Positive 2. Yes, positive 2. So 8 on 2. 2 can divide here 1, divide here 4. So the answer is 4. So therefore, the gradient is equal to 4. So when the coordinates are all negative, this is how we solve it, step by step. And it is only simplified on this channel. Sir Young Bizzy made it easy channel. So let's take that last question on the gradient of a line. So the question says the gradient of a line passing through the point P 6, 7. Point P is 6, 7 and Q X 8 is 1 on 3. Find the value of X. Find the value of X. Now what do you see here? They've given us the point with an X inside and they've given us the gradient. They've given us the gradient. Like the question we solved on the midpoint. When the midpoint was given. So let's identify our coordinate. X1, 6. X2, X. Y1, 7. Y2, 8. Now, our gradient is y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. Now, here is a situation where the gradient has been given. So we have to replace the gradient with the value they've given us. And the value they gave us was 1 on 3. Now, what is y2? y2 is 8 minus y1, which is 7. All on x2 is x minus x1, which is 6. Now, how do we solve this? Now, we have 1 on 3 is equal to, now 8 minus 7 is 1. Then we have x minus 6. We solve this by cross multiplying. Yes, you can cross multiply. That will be the easier one. So since we are looking for the x, so 1 will multiply x minus 6 is equal to 3 will also multiply the 1. Now what do you have here? This multiplying this will give me x. Then it will give me negative 6 here as well. So now x minus 6, 3, 1 will give me 3 is equal to, so x minus 6, so x will be equal to 3 plus 6. Yes, let me even continue up there. So I have x minus 6 is equal to 3. So x will be equal to 3 plus 6. So x will be equal to 9. So we've found the value. So the value of x is equal to 9. So this is how we solve this expression. When the gradient is given, just put the gradient at where we quote the formula, then just substitute and solve. Very simple. And it can only be simplified on this channel. I know there are some parts that you wish I'll jump the step and write the answer straight. No, I don't jump steps when I'm teaching. So I want you to understand how certain answers are obtained. Yes, and this brings us to the part 1 of the coordinate geometry, which involves finding the length, the midpoint, and gradient of a line. So watch out for the next lesson on this. If today is your first time seeing us, don't forget to subscribe and follow us on all social media platforms and recommend to all students. Until we meet again, we say goodbye for now.